God speaking in my life right now, right? Saying, these are the people you need to be hearing from. In January 2009, she managed one of the most hectic calendars in the country as a congressional scheduler in Washington, D.C., which I can't even fathom. She quit her prestigious PR job. Oh, no, I jumped around. I'm sorry. Then in 2010, she kicked off her career. I think this is what's really important in crisis communications and governmental affairs, especially that crisis communications piece, right? Eventually, she kind of figured out that life was not the life she really wanted to live. Any of us who live that life or that other life realize just how incredibly hectic it can be. And so she discovered coaching and, graduated from the World Coaching Institute, decided to kick off her business. And she's been doing this now for quite a while. So in her other life, she helps busy professionals master time management so they can stop feeling overwhelmed and start spending time on what matters most, right? Which is incredibly important. But she also grew up in the piney woods of North Louisiana. I was kind of here dueling banjos at that point, pretending to fly around her backyard as Peter Pan and adventure all the time, which I think is.
You're really going deep with the bio.
I gotta tell you, I probably read your bio at 2 a.m. last night, and I read every single word of it. It is just an incredible bio, not written like the rest of ours. She's been featured in Biz Report, Washington Post, Biz New Orleans, and then Register, just to name a few. But yeah, if you have time on any given day for anybody on the Zoom this morning, go read Ava's bio. It's entertaining and kind of lighthearted, and for Paula, Representative Paula Davis was first elected to the House of Representatives in 2015 and was reelected for a second term in 2019. She currently serves as the first chairwoman of the House Commerce Committee. I just want y'all to stop and feel that for a moment, right? Yes, exactly. Amen. She's a member of the House Executive Committee, the Select Leadership Committee, the Joint Select Committee on Economic Recovery, and the Governor's Resilient Louisiana Commission. Paula was born and raised in Breaux Bridge, just down the road. She's been a resident of Baton Rouge for a long time, though. She received a Bachelor of Arts degree in poli-sci from LSU. In Paula's previous life, she was involved in politics for over 20 years. She served as a Deputy Commissioner of Insurance, doing property and casualty insurance work for the department. Ew. Yes, Paula's a licensed commercial real estate agent. She's been married to John Davis, who's just a lovely, incredible man, who's got many talents as well, for 22 years. And they have a daughter, Hayden, who's incredible. She's a senior at Auburn. So super excited to have you ladies this morning. And I think we're going to go ahead and let Anna kick it off.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, for inviting me to join you today. And for those of you watching the recording later, hello, wish you were here live, but so glad that you're catching up with the recording. I first really want to commend you for being here and for being a part of this amazing organization. We as women, Representative Davis can vouch, we as women have such an important voice. We have such an important story to tell, and we have such a critical seat that has to be filled at the table. We have to show up. We have to keep moving forward, even when it's hard and even when it feels scary. But by investing in your professional development and being here today and surrounding yourself in community with other women who have those aspirations to make change and make Louisiana, make where we live a better place, you're on the right track. So I just want to say, way to go for being here. The second thing, and Renee said this, chat. If you don't feel like you want to take yourself off of mute and talk, I want to make sure that you know where the chat is. So head over, find the chat, and let me know what you had for breakfast in the chat. I have just had coffee this morning. So let's all just let me know what you had for breakfast so we can all make sure. Yeah, same. Just coffee. Ooh, Andre, come make me breakfast. Coffee.
Strawberries.
Gotta add that fruit, ladies.
Yeah. Coffee at Allegrity. It's definitely that time of year. Awesome. Okay, so we all know where the chat is, and we are a bunch of coffee drinking ladies. I love it. Gotta power up. Okay, so during our time together today, there are so many different aspects of public speaking that we could cover. We could turn this into an entire semester long college course, but we're not going to do that today. We're going to hit the high points so that you're able to walk away from our time together feeling more, there's Andre, hey girl, so that you can feel more confident in telling stories, in structuring a speech, and a little bit of that is going to come in with understanding the science behind stepping up to the mic. So today we're going to talk about stories, we're going to talk about structure, and we're going to talk about science. And Renee shared a little bit about my background. Morning, Tony. Shared a little bit about my background in the beginning, but yes, I am a time management coach, but I actually spent 10 years in the 24/7 world of crisis communication and government affairs. Started my career on Capitol Hill, scheduling for Congressman Gow, the first Republican congressman from New Orleans since Reconstruction. And so that was where I really got my that time management background, having to manage someone else's schedule and mine as well as a young professional. So it was definitely a baptism by fire situation. But then I really missed Louisiana. I mean, would you believe that you can't get like boiled crawfish whenever you want in Washington, D.C.? It is truly a travesty. So I moved back home and started working in sort of an alphabet soup of state government positions. I spent time at DHH in Ledge Affairs and as executive assistant. I moved on to the Lieutenant Governor's office, where I served as communications director, writing umpteen million speeches and talking points. Moved on from there to the Department of Natural Resources, DNR, where I continued writing speeches for Secretary Scott Angel, who at the time was the secretary and the liaison to the federal government on the oil spill. So we're talking congressional testimony, we're talking writing media talking points, interview prep. From there, I hopped over to DOA, the Division of Administration, where I was the special projects director to Commissioner Paul Rainwater, putting together legislative briefs and talking points on things like retirement and serving on some of the state retirement committees. And then from there, went over to the Louisiana Housing Commission, LHC, where I was their communications director and intergovernmental affairs director, setting up, again, more committee presentations, more talking points, more media interviews, and more grand openings. There were a lot of events, really fun events that we got to do, pulling press and writing speeches for multiple people standing behind the podium to share in exciting times. But I ended up leaving state government, moving to New Orleans with my husband, Scott Cornick, and worked in a PR firm for a while. Again, back in that crisis affairs mode. And this is where things got kind of hairy. This is where I continued working oil spills, continued working plant explosions, got to dip my toes in the water of nonprofit embezzlement schemes in universities on the brink of collapse. And so you name it, and I've probably escorted someone down a back freight elevator to avoid TV cameras waiting outside. So I just want to let you know that, well, yes, I am a time management coach now. I bring this very colorful, crazy background of speech and media communications with me. And so I'm really excited to share some of what I've learned along the way with you. And what did I just do? I just told you a story. I just told you a story. And so that's where we start today. We're going to start with story. Storytelling is the most amazing, like historic, effective way that we can communicate a point, that we can get someone on our side, that we can help someone understand who we are. And so when it comes to public speaking, my first challenge to you is to begin looking for stories. And looking for stories starts with yourself. And so this is where I want to bring in Representative Davis, because when it comes to public speaking, when it comes to speaking to the media as a candidate and eventually as an elected official, one of the most common stories that you'll be asked to tell is, tell me about yourself. And you could answer this question by saying, well, I'm 36 years old. I'm a mom of two. I'm married to Scott, and I live outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And everyone's like, okay, right? Andre's like, boring. Or you could say, let me tell you a story. And whenever you say, let me tell you a story, people just lean in. And so I would love to invite Representative Davis to tell me about yourself.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you all for having me. I appreciate it on this beautiful Saturday morning. Gets me up and going. And I've had my 2 cups of coffee and my Allegra as well. So if I have a few little sniffles, I apologize. But first, I want to, something you said resonated. All of the folks on this call have an interest in public service. And when it feels hard, you said when it feels hard, you have to stay in the trenches. And that is so true. And sometimes with your story, that's one of the hardest parts, because for me, talking about myself and talking, great things about myself, it's hard for people. It really is. It can be difficult. So you kind of have to figure out, okay, what do I want to say and what message do I want to convey and what is the image I want to project today during whatever speech you're at. So I always say, I'm going to tell you a story about Paula and how I got involved in public service, because this was not the path I thought I would ever take. I grew up in Breaux Bridge, Louisiana. I have 3 brothers and a very strong dad and a very strong mom. So Renee can tell you that I am very prissy and very much a girl, but I am very much a boy inside. Yes, and I will fight with the best of them. But I have always been drawn to public service because of my dad. I grew up watching him, not as an elected official, but someone in the community that was in the background, constantly striving to make our community better. The community of Breaux Bridge and the community of Acadiana as a whole. He throughout he's 81 years old and he is still involved in the community. He was texting me yesterday about the painted bridge in Breaux Bridge. Is one of the most photographed bridges in the United States. It just got painted and we're having an opening ceremony on November 5th, and he wants me there because I bugged Sean Wilson for 6 years to please get the bridge repainted. So I saw my dad very, very involved. And it was a passion that he had, and he received many, many accolades throughout Acadiana and the St. Martin Parish area. And I've seen that for the last 48 years. But for me, it wasn't the credit that he received in what drew me to want to serve and follow the path that I've taken, but it was the way people reacted to him. And it was the way people felt, and it was a way that he brought the community together in whatever he was doing, whether it was a firehouse, whether it was getting 911, whether it was establishing Acadiana ambulance with the folks that are there now. It was the way he brought people together and the way he made them feel. And it was always for the right reasons. And so I feel like I got into this naturally. Number one, I watched him. He had a love for politics. He did some lobbying for his businesses. And I was lucky enough that in 7th grade, he took me to the Capitol and I was sat in a committee meeting and I watched all of the legislators. We were in the Senate. I'll never forget. It was Senate Room A. And I watched the legislators up there reading the newspaper. This was in the 1980s. Reading the newspaper. No one was paying attention. And I said, Daddy, everyone's, talking, they're getting up, they're not paying attention. You're speaking, you're giving this great speech. He said, honey, they already know how they're going to vote. This is all just formality. But so how do you get their attention? And again, it's with telling a story. It's telling a story about your business or telling a story about your passion when you're at the Capitol. And it's no different for a candidate or a political person like me, an elected official, to tell their story. So I went off to college and I knew my passion was political science. So I got a degree in political science, started working at the Capitol when I was 17 as a page in the Senate. After that, I graduated and became a lobbyist. I worked mainly for insurance companies. So I was mainly in those insurance committees. Again, that's what I knew because I grew up in that industry with my dad in the insurance industry. A couple of years after that, I floated on over to the Department of Insurance. And as Renee told y'all earlier, I became Deputy Commissioner of Insurance for Property and Casualty. And either fortunately or unfortunately, I was Deputy Commissioner during Hurricanes Katrina and Rita. So I learned very quickly how to get in front of a camera and speak. And it was terrifying. It really was. I'm not going to say it was easy because it's something I had not done before. As a lobbyist, you're really never in the forefront in the media. You know, you're behind the scenes and the elected officials are in the front. So that was really my first being thrown into the fire of public speaking. And I had to go around the country and convince insurance companies to come back to Louisiana. Why is Louisiana an attractive place to do business here? It's still what I do today. So I went to the Department of Insurance and I did that for a while, got out, went back to lobbying. And then in 2010, my husband came to me and said, I think you may want to just stay home, because I was getting burned out because my daughter was 10. 2010, she was 10. As we know in Louisiana, we go into session through June. So she was getting out of school. I'm having to work. I'm having to hire sitters. Sitters are canceling on me. I'm having to bring Hayden to the Capitol with me, which ended up being one of the best lobbying tools there is, because when you bring a 10-year-old in an LSU cheerleader outfit to the Capitol, you don't have to put out many notes to get people to come and talk with you. So I kind of went into retirement and did that for a couple years. I really, really got involved in my community here in Baton Rouge. I got on many boards. I started volunteering, and really that became a full-time job. So I did a lot of volunteer work with the arts because the arts are my passion. I have a very strong love for music and for theater and the LSU, the Louisiana Arts and Science Museum, the Manship Theater. You know, we love going to New York to see Broadway plays. So I was really involved in that. As fate would have it, in 2010, my husband, who is a lawyer, went to the Capitol one day with a client to lobby an issue. And one of his associates decided to leave the law firm. And so he called me in a panic and he said, lovingly, Paula, I need a CNI dog. I need a CNI dog at the Capitol. Can you come back and help me? I said, sure. Because I don't work anymore, I need clothes and I need to be able to pick up Hayden from school, because that was always my number one priority. And for me, that was also a defining moment in knowing I could do both of those things and still be a really good mom and a really good wife, but also a really effective advocate at the Capitol or whatever business you're in. So I went back to the Capitol as his CNI dog, and we lobbied an issue and we won. But I was talking to an old friend who was still a lobbyist and a former legislator, and they said, you know what, Paula, you know more than most of the folks sitting on this side of the rail because of your experiences. You should run for office. And my first thought was, y'all have lost your mind. I am not running for office. There's no way I'm doing this. But the next morning, I get a text from my sweet friend, Eric Ponte, who was the representative in my district at the time. And he said, I am so glad you're going to do this. I'm behind you, and you have 2 weeks to make your announcement because I'm retiring on June 11th on the House floor. So I had 2 weeks to decide that I was running for state representative. And again, I had never run for any elected position. I had not been in elected position since the student council in junior high and high school. So it was a little daunting, but the thing that pushed me over the edge and deciding, yes, this is what you're meant to do, is I called my dad. He was one of the first people I called. I called my dad, and he was in a kayak in Alaska. And I said, Dad, I think I'm going to run for state representative. And he said, I'm in a kayak in Glacier Bay. I think that you are, there's a lot of static, and I don't know what you just, I said, no, you heard me right. I know you heard. I'm going to run for state representative. He said, you go, girl. And we're 100% behind you, and we're ready to work. And then I went to my daughter and my husband, of course, and my daughter said, Mom, I'm so proud of you, and this is your opportunity to really be a role model. And that was the moment I said, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I'm not going to say that it's been easy. It wasn't an easy election. No election ever is. or maybe some more. I haven't seen many. And it hasn't been an easy 6 years, but it's been an extremely rewarding 6 years. And it's probably been one of the best decisions I have ever made in my entire life, because not only have I proven to myself that I can do it all, but I've proven, more importantly, to my daughter that she can do it all. Hayden is a senior at Auburn. She's graduating in December. And that child works full-time, has 20 hours a week in school, and ended up getting another part-time job at night and a dog. And time management. You have said it, that's the key to everything. And I think that's the one thing that Hayden saw with me was she has time management skills, and that is her greatest asset. And I'm so proud to be able to think that I helped in shaping that for her. So as a result, here I am. I'm now the chairwoman of the Commerce Committee, which I'm really excited about. Over the last 6 years, economic development has been very important to me. Coming from Acadiana, I know the importance of oil and gas in our state, but I also know the volatility of it, and it's cyclical, and we have to learn to diversify our economy. And I've been working really hard with, unfortunately, Mandy Mitchell's not there anymore, but with Mandy Mitchell and the whole staff at LED to come up with, how do we diversify our economy? How do we encourage more businesses to come to Louisiana? How do we encourage businesses to expand in Louisiana? So that has really been one of my big passions. So I'm very proud to be the chairwoman of Commerce, and hopefully I'm able to voice that every Monday and Tuesday when I chair that committee. And I thank y'all for listening to me. And if you have any questions, you go right ahead and ask.
All right. Okay. So I was taking notes.
Okay.
As you were sharing your story, and there are some really important things that I want to point out for all of you. Thank you so much. I knew that that would be epic and exactly what we needed to hear. Did you catch that when she started telling her story, she didn't start with who she is and what she does. She took us back. She took us back to the beginning, and she painted a picture for us. But she didn't tell us when she was born and what life was like when she was 4. She took us back, and she dropped us in a moment in history. She dropped us in a moment by telling us about her dad, and the influence that he had on her and her story. But not only that, it ties into what she's doing now. And it also speaks to who she's speaking to. Okay. So the story it connects with us because we aspire to be in those leadership roles. It takes us back to the beginning, and it drops us in a moment. She also added detail. She told us the story within a story of the painted bridge. I've seen this bridge before, and so I could kind of picture it. But even if you've never seen that exact bridge that she's talking about, you can picture an old weathered bridge that needs that refreshing, that needs that work. And you can put yourself in that story. But she didn't get hung up on, I think it was a Wednesday. No, wait, it was a Tuesday at around 3, no, maybe 2:30 in the afternoon. She focused on the details that matter, the details that put us in the story. Just like when she said it was Senate Committee Room A, we don't need to know that, but it paints a picture. She was vulnerable. Her story included vulnerability. She shared that public speaking was terrifying, something else that connects, that very intentionally connects with us. Now, she may not share that exact same point if she's speaking behind the podium at a Chamber of Commerce event, but she picked pieces of her story that connect with us, and vulnerability connects. But it's not vulnerability for the sake of vulnerability. It's vulnerability with a purpose. She also talked about burnout, which again is something that so many women, especially women that are ambitious, face because we're juggling all the things. Another thing that I really want to point out that I hope gives you some comfort is that there were some times that she kind of stuttered over her words a little bit. She didn't all out mess up, but there were some times that she flubbed. It was not a perfectly given oration. It was storytelling. It was comfortable. And so if you're sitting with this perspective of, I can't speak because I'm not going to get the words right, I'm not going to get it perfect, that's not the point, because I'm sure you didn't even notice that there were some times that happened. She also made the story exciting. She talked about the ups and she talked about the downs. Again, this is not just saying I'm 36 years old, I'm a mom of 2, and I'm a time management coach. She brought us through. I was missing things with my daughter. She was 10, and then she brought us to the ups, the wins, the exciting points. She really took us along. Again, kayak in Alaska paints a picture. I could picture her dad in the kayak on the river, on the lake with mountains in the background. Obviously, I've never been to Alaska, but it puts you there. And then finally, she ended by inspiring us, a message of inspiration for us. And she connected that story to what she's doing now. And so, and it was very future focused. She gave us the past, she gave us the present, and she gave us the future. This is what I'm working toward. This is what I'm doing. This is what you can expect from me. And so thank you for an amazing example of telling your story.
And can I say something real quick? Because I think you hit on something very important for people to know. And what I think about before I speak in front of any audience, know your audience. So I know that I am today training other women or helping other women feel comfortable speaking in public. And it's just like you said, you're gonna flub, you're going to mess up, and that is okay. Take a breath, find your words, and continue going. Always be your authentic self, and it doesn't have to be perfect because no one is perfect. And it makes you seem more real. It just does. It's like, okay, she flubbed a little bit. Great. I do that too. And that's okay. But you pick up the pieces and you have that confidence to take a deep breath and continue going. But you always have to know your audience.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So if there is one action item from our first point today, it's write your story, know your story. So some best practices for developing your story would be to really look back. And I call this knowing your why. And so if we're looking through the lens of running for office, it's knowing your why. Why is it that you want to serve? What was that turning point moment that led you to public service? Was it a problem that you solved? Was it an injustice that you recognized? Was it being encouraged by someone in your family? Really take the time to stop, sit, reflect. Maybe journaling could be a good exercise to really think through, what is my story? And as you're developing that story, you're not going to get it right the first time. You're not going to get that delivery right the first time. But what can really help is actually writing out this. It's something that helps me, is actually writing out that story and practicing saying it. I mean, that's not the first time she's given a story like this. It takes practice. It takes knowing it, not memorizing it word for word, but it takes knowing what those high points are, what those details are that you want to incorporate, like the painted bridge, like the kayak in Alaska, like the cheerleader uniform at the Capitol, those things that we can picture and bring us into the story. And then you just have to practice it. Whether that's talking in front of a mirror, which God, I have done for hours, or just actually getting out there and starting to speak. You get better by doing. And so challenge number 1 is to know your story, write your story, and be able to tell your story. So the second thing that is going to give us more confidence when we step up to the mic is a proven structure for giving a speech. Now, there are so many different structures that we could explore. Again, we could spend an entire semester talking about the different ways to structure a speech. But what I want to give you is a foolproof, super simple structure for giving a speech. All right. If you've got your pencils out, get ready. It's why, what, how, what if. Why, what, how, what if. By taking that simple structure that I'll walk you through in just a sec, you are now equipped to step up to the mic, to answer a to answer a question from the media, to do just about anything with that simple structure. Why, what, how, what if? Cindy, do you have a question? I just want to check real quick because I saw you in the chat. How, why, what, how, what if? Okay, so here's let me tell you a little about the structure. So we start with why, because awesome, love it. We start with why because we have to make sure that people understand why they need to lean forward and listen. We've got to make it very clear what's in it for them, because we have a very, very limited attention span. I think studies have shown recently that the human attention span, as a result of all of the technology that we are faced with constantly and all of the notifications, that we have an attention span that is now shorter than that of a goldfish. So you have to catch people's attention quickly and help them understand why they need to pay attention, why it's going to be helpful for them, like that, what's in it for them, and why they should listen to you. So you can start off with that why, with whatever it is that they're going to get out of it. Like, starting with the problem is also a really great way to roll here. Public speaking can be really terrifying. Public speaking, you step up to the mic and you have no idea what to say. And so with that, your audience starts nodding their head. Yes, yes, public speaking is scary. I do have trouble knowing what to say. And so you've got them. Okay. So then from there, you go into your authority. And so that's one of the first things that both Paula and I did today. You know, I told you a little bit about what we were going to cover, but then I went straight into my background, because if you don't believe that I'm a credible source, if you don't know that I've written countless speeches and worked in communication roles for a number of agencies and political candidates, I completely forgot, like I was campaign manager for a statewide election a couple years ago. That happened. It's like crazy. Without knowing that, like, you don't have a reason to listen to me. So it's why people should sit up and pay attention and why they should listen to you. So next is the what. Why, what? So what is it that you'll be talking about today? Well, we will be talking about public speaking and how to be less nervous. We'll talk about how to structure. So you're letting people know the what. This is when you jump into like definitions. This is when you explain, you know, public speaking is standing behind a podium. It's sharing thoughts. It's telling a story. It's making connection. It's persuading. This is when you talk about that, what we're talking about. So then you can go into the how. And this is typically when people share the like 3 points. This is typically when people go into that, the 3 points of how to do the what. Today, we will be talking about public speaking and how to make it easier for you with 3 things. First, we're going to talk about story. Then we're going to talk about structure. And then we're going to talk about the science behind feeling a little less nervous. So those are things that I did at the very beginning of our time together. You set the stage, and then you dive into each of those 3 points. So that's your how, educating them on how we'll do that. And then finally, the last piece of the puzzle is what if? Because as people are listening, chances are you're typically not going to be in a setting where people from the audience are going to be yelling questions in the middle of your speech. Sure, that can happen sometimes, but people are going to be sitting in the audience and they're going to be taking in your why, what, and how, and they're going to be thinking, well, what if this? And what if that happens? And what about this exception? And well, what if that doesn't work for me? And so what you do as the speaker is that you anticipate their questions. And so that enables you to go straight from the how, you know, how we're going to do this through story, structure, and science. And it enables you to say, well, what if I don't have time to sit and write out a speech? Well, you can do X, Y, Z. Or what if I break out in hives every time I speak? Well, you may want to see a doctor about that. You know, it's really kind of anticipating those questions. And so again, why, what, how, and what if? So I know I just threw a lot at you. And I would love to know if you have any questions about that structure. at this point? And Paula, especially if you'd like to have
I
any.
love this. I love this. This I'm taking notes as you're speaking, because I am no expert in public speaking. So I'm always learning, and I'm always willing to learn. And I think for me, I love how this makes it so simple. Sometimes I may overcomplicate things. And whenever I usually write a paper or give a speech, I use this IRAC, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Why, what, how, what if?
Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes you can start with the conclusion of this is why public speaking is scary, or this is whatever the issue may be. You can start with the conclusion, go through the issue, rule, analysis, and then come back to the conclusion of why this is the right thing to do, why it's not the right thing to do, whatever the issue may be. But I love that you simplify that for me. Why, what, how, what if?
Yes.
I've got a question for you, because it's something that happens to me in media interviews.
Uh-huh.
It's like when you get asked a question, because reporters will tell you they're calling about X, Y, or Z. And then I know you've got to pivot or do whatever, but how do you like that quickly get your thoughts organized and get something out the door to the reporter over the phone, or if it's in person, and those few seconds?
Yeah, and you know what? You take a breath and you gather your thoughts, and that's okay. Because a lot of times I go on 107.3 in the mornings during session, and I guess I should, but I never ask, hey, what do you want to talk about? I just go in, and I've studied and during session I'm very prepared and very well aware what the hot topics are.
You know your points. Like that.
I know my points. Yes. I know exactly what the hot topics are. So again, I know my points. I know what the issue is. I know what the law currently is, what we want the law to be. I know the analysis of it, why we need it. And then I know why I want you to get to, vote with me or vote against me, or not vote against me, vote with me or vote against the bill that I'm against. So it's take a deep breath. I always take a deep breath, because you can get a little lightheaded sometimes. That has happened. Take a deep breath, think about the question. And a lot of times for me, it's repeat the question so that it's giving my brain time again. Okay, this is what Bill just asked me, or this is what Kevin just asked me. Okay, why am I going to vote for constitutional amendment number 1? Okay, this is why I'm going to do it. And again, preparation is key. And I know a lot of times when the press calls you, you really have no idea what they're calling about, or they'll call and say, hey, we want an interview. Can you call me back in 5 minutes? That is the press. You don't ever get 2 or 3 days notice. We're doing a story and our deadline is in an hour. But you can always ask, what is this about, so that I'm prepared with the topic. So just go in prepared.
Yeah.
But I am preparing constantly, especially during session, every day, every night. And what I do is every night I go through every committee to see what bills are up, so that I know if I'm caught on the House, in the House chamber by a media person, and they say, hey, what'd you think about the sports betting bill today? I know that was heard in this committee, and I know what happened. So I have some idea, and I'm not completely caught off guard.
Mm-hmm. Thinking in the context of being a candidate, when you are in candidate mode, there are typically a set of issues that you are choosing to run on your platform, that reason why you are running. And being a candidate in some ways is easier than navigating the press during legislative session, because during legislative session, you could be asked about any bill at any moment. But when you're a candidate, the focus is a little more narrow. Would you agree?
I completely agree.
This is one of those times where, you may have one key volunteer that's helping you as you are a candidate. You may not have a full staff with a campaign manager and a press secretary. Right. And that's not the case for most of
my family. Yeah.
And so you've got to learn how to be your own press secretary. And so when you are on the campaign trail, you have the ability to ask that question. Can you tell me what questions you'll have for me?
Yes.
Can you tell me who else you're speaking to? You
Yes.
can ask those questions, and it's allowed. That's something that I learned very early on working on a U.S. Senate campaign. Just that you can ask, hey, what is your deadline? Because it may not necessarily be in 5 minutes. A lot of times it is, but sometimes it's not. And so being willing to ask those questions is one thing, because that helps you be more prepared. But second of all, knowing your issues and knowing, just like you create that story for yourself, you write that story down, it backwards and forwards, doing the same thing with your issues, talking points, so that you have a one sheet or you have a Google Doc that has, in a perfect world, the way that you would answer any of those questions, so that you have a study sheet, you have a cheat sheet, you have a study guide, and that anytime you're asked a question, you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not doing that extra work to come up with the answer, because you know what your script is, you know what your line is. Andre, what you got?
So I love the whole, I've been taking notes, everything. And, yes, like there's something about just totally being prepared. But I think the pessimistic side of me, and the side that scares me from ever putting myself out there to speak, is like, what if I am not prepared in, this specific way? So what is your best advice, both Anna and Paula, for sort of letting the press or whoever it is you're speaking to, whether it's a legislator or a lobbyist or just a chamber, that you don't know the answer, but, do you just straight up acknowledge, like, I'm really not prepared to answer that? Or, what are some very finesse ways that you can kind of crawfish out of answering a question, for lack of a better term?
Yeah. Let me get back to you on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I thought that's what you were like telling me.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's literally it. Let me get back to you on that. Let me get back to you on that. What's your deadline? I've got to run to XYZ meeting. Let me get back to you on that. I mean, especially, and I know that we're talking more in context of running, but once you're in that role, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be unprepared. Most of the time, you're going to have some context, and you always go back to why, what, how, what if. Wait, why, what? Yeah, that. If you need a structure to answer a question, but chances are you will be prepared.
Yeah, I completely agree. You can completely ask that reporter, hey, can I get back with you? Exactly. What's your deadline? And for me, one thing that has helped is I've become not friends with reporters, but you get to know them. At the Capitol, we sit there's a press row, and we will go and sit there and chit chat with reporters, so that they start to have a comfort level with you and trust in you. So if Melinda Delott calls me and I say, oh, Melinda, give me a second, I'll call you back, she's okay. She's not going to say, Paula Davis was dodging my questions.
Right.
So get to know the reporters if you can. I think that's really important, to establish some kind of relationship.
It's also not helpful for a reporter to ask someone a question that they know is not going to have the info that they need. They begin to know who they can go to for insight on specific issues. And so if you're a transportation guru, they're probably not going to ask you about that like weird tax thing that's like on the floor. Yes, there is an expectation that elected officials be informed, but reporters also kind of know who to ask for the most part. And you will have, of course you will emerge as an expert in some area, like Paula has with insurance. And they know that they can go to her for that. So that's one of those things that, it's good to have a strategy. Can I get back to you? What's your deadline? But it, especially like in the campaign side of things, it's not going to come up as often as you might think.
Yeah.
So we've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we make the most of our time. And so I want to move on to science. And I think that you guys are really going to like this one. I think that you guys are really going to like this. So raise your hand if you feel like kind of sweaty, like maybe jittery a little bit whenever you get up to speak. Yeah, I do. Maybe like here's, yeah. So
Absolutely.
turns out that our body experiences nervousness and excitement with the same exact physical response. Our bodies process feeling nervous and feeling excited in the same exact way. You can Google this. I can send you a TED Talk on it. And so what does that mean? Whenever we are standing off stage and it's almost our turn and the spotlights are on and our introduction is being wrapped up, because by now we know all the words in the introduction and we know when it's wrapping up, and we're feeling sweaty. And it can be that second nature to think, oh my God, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. And then when you tell yourself that you're nervous, you show up nervous. You respond like someone who is nervous. But if instead we reframe, and as we're standing off stage and we feel those jitters, we tell ourselves, I am excited.
Mm-hmm.
I am excited. I am excited to be here and to share my story and to talk to these people. When you step up to the mic, you bring excitement. Again, because our bodies interpret the feelings of nervousness and the feelings of excitement in the exact same way. So you get to trick yourself by telling yourself, I'm excited. And I hope that that can be comforting to you as you are thinking about public speaking, as you are preparing for your next time in front of a group, your next time behind the mic, to instead reframe and tell yourself, I am excited. One more thing that I would share is I would encourage you to create a pre-speaking ritual. Something that helps you get in the game, that helps you tell yourself, okay, we're about to speak. It's go time. I'm about to like get my excited face on. And this doesn't have to be doing jumping jacks. It doesn't have to be anything that anyone can see. You could say a Bible verse in your head that's meaningful for you every time before you walk on the stage to give yourself that calm. You can say song lyrics in your head. I'll tell you mine.
I would love to say that.
Yeah.
That's mine.
What is yours?
Okay, so before I go on, and those of you who know me know I'm usually really happy, bubbly. But I always say, Paula, you've got this. You've got this. And then I start singing "This Girl Is on Fire" by Alicia Keys.
I love
there,
it.
you know my secret.
I love it. So
it makes me confident. It makes me feel good, and it makes me know, honey, you've got this. You were asked to speak here for a reason. You've got this.
Yeah. So any fans of Hamilton here? Just okay. So in Hamilton, the song "Wait for It," Aaron Burr says, I am the one thing in life I can control.
Yes.
I am inimitable. I am an original. I'm not falling behind or running late. I'm not standing still. I am lying in wait. And anytime, just like thinking about it makes me like, whew. Anytime I'm about to step up to the mic, I'm starting to give presentations like once a week now. That's what goes through my head, because it reminds me that I'm an original. No one else is like me. And I'm in control here. And so I would highly encourage you to come up with your pump up song, to come up with your verse, to come up with whatever it is that is going to get you in the game before you tell yourself, I'm excited, and you get up to speak. So
I'll call it my walkout song.
The walkout song.
Song.
Cindy, it's called Wait for It. It's called Wait for It. It is so good. So we've got just a couple minutes left. Again, I want to make the most of our time. You know, I know that there may be a lot of thoughts running through your head. And instead of trying to anticipate them with a what if, I want to hear from you. What questions do you have? What questions do you have?
I know some of you have questions. Have I ever nearly fainted before giving or while giving a speech? Yes. Especially when it's really hot, when the lights are on you, you're on a stage and you get really hot. You have to really stop and take a deep breath and have a glass of water or a bottle of water next to you. When I go up to the podium at the Capitol, when I go to the well, I always have either a real Coke for some sugar or a bottle of water.
Yeah, because you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
That is good advice.
Yeah. And then another piece of advice, real quick. Practice where you're not comfortable. So for me, because I speak with my hands. So I am more comfortable in a setting where I have a mic and I'm walking around a room. I am very uncomfortable standing still behind a podium. That is so difficult for me because I just want to walk around and get engaged with the audience. And at the Capitol, I can't do that. So practice where you're not comfortable speaking. So if it's in front of a podium and you're comfortable there, great. Practice that as well. If you're not comfortable walking around and looking to the audience for questions, practice that. And it may seem a little silly, put some of your kids' stuffed animals around the room, whatever it takes, but practice what you're not comfortable with.
Yeah. And on the same topic of practice, if you can do a dress rehearsal. So let's say that you're preparing to give an announcement speech, announcing your candidacy. You're probably going to be photographed. A lot of people are going to be there. Pressure's going to be on. You're telling yourself you're excited. Practice giving your speech in the same outfit you plan to wear, because you might find that your suit jacket, like something about the arms, like doesn't allow you to like lift your arms up, or if you choose like a really pretty off shoulder, then you like can't move well. Maybe you choose a pencil skirt that doesn't have a high enough like slit in it and you can't walk around. I would highly recommend doing a dress rehearsal. Questions in the chat box. I know I struggle with talking too fast when I'm speaking in front of people. Any tips for how to slow down? Paula, do you want to take that one?
Oh, sure. Because I usually speak way too fast because I get excited. Especially when it's something I'm passionate about, I get really excited. So take pauses, learn. And again, that goes with practice. Learn to pause, learn to take a deep breath. Don't let it show that you're taking a deep breath, but take a breath and then go into your next point. Because I will tend to have run-on sentences. So I understand the talking too fast, but you just train yourself to give out your point, take a moment, next point, take a moment, be sure to breathe.
And sometimes, honestly, it's okay to be a little up tempo with the way that you speak, because it means that you know what you're talking about. Yeah. It keeps the listener engaged. There was a rebuttal to the State of the Union back in 2009. That was incredibly slow and awkward, not naming names, but it was incredibly slow and awkward because that individual typically spoke with a much faster tempo, and slowing it down came off as very awkward. So that also ties into be authentic, be yourself. And if you're a fast talker, roll with it, make everybody else keep up.
Teresa asked, do I have notes when I give a speech? It depends. Usually if I'm speaking in front of a crowd and I have a mic and I'm walking around, I do not have notes. I just know my outline. But every now and then, if I am at a podium, I will have notes at the podium and I check off kind of those points. If I'm giving a speech to a Chamber of Commerce and I'm behind the podium, or a Kiwanis Club, and I know I want to hit amendment number 1, amendment number 2, and sports betting, or whatever the issues are, I want to make sure that I hit those points. So I'll have just kind of an outline, not necessarily what I'm going to say, because you should already know that, but I will hit those points and check it off.
Exactly. Yeah. Outline is great. I will say that if you are speaking behind a podium, you may want to write this down. I had a boss once who really, really preferred to speak with the speech word for word in front of him. That's what he was comfortable with. I'm actually really comfortable with that too, as long as you are very like skilled at like looking up and making it not feel like you're reading from a speech. 18-point Arial black, 1.5 line space.
Yes.
18-point Arial black, 1.5 line space. That typically comes out to about a minute a page, depending on how quickly you speak, and put that in a binder, one of those slimline binders. And if you're someone who really thrives from like having like the word for word, which he was, 18-point Arial black, 1.5 space. Before we wrap up, I want to share a technique that's really worked for me. And it is taking a manila folder and using Post-it notes to represent different aspects of the speech. And so as you are giving a speech, you will begin to create like different sections for yourself. Your intro, this story, this point, that point. And so what you can do is you can take these different colored Post-it notes and you come up with a word or a phrase that represents that part of your speech. And so rather than having a full outline, or rather than having, especially if this is a speech that you're giving often, like a stump speech on the campaign trail, it helps you, like you can visualize, you can either have this on the podium in front of you, or you can visualize it. And then the colors, you'll see that there are different colors.
Mhm.
They represent story, humor, content, and interaction. So I have a different color that represents each of those types of content, because if you realize that you don't have any humor, like, oh, there's no pink over here, I need to inject some humor, or I haven't told a story over here, let me inject a story. It can make sure that you're continuing to tell, continuing to deliver a compelling speech with variation, because you've got the colors that represent it. So this is something that I learned from the president of the National Speakers Association. It works really well for him, and I picked it up and I'm a huge fan of it as well. So it is 10:04. We have covered a lot today. All of you have been so amazing and engaged, and I am so excited to keep track of, everything that all of you will be up to, and your announcements when you inevitably run, and then your celebration when you inevitably win. And so I just want to let you know that as you are leaving, as you are taking in and pondering all of this public speaking knowledge that's been thrown at you today, you have me as a resource. If you have questions, if you want to bounce an idea, I really encourage you to, I'm on Instagram a good bit. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'm Anna D. Cornick. Go follow me. Send me a DM. We can talk about it. You'll also be really excited to know that, so I'm a podcaster as well. I'm the host of It's About Time, a podcast sharing stories and strategies to inspire women seeking better work-life balance. And Monday's episode is all about communication. I'm interviewing an interpersonal communication expert. She's a TEDx coordinator, and she is a speaker coach. And I really think that you might enjoy that episode. So let me see if I can drop in a link.
Nice. Very timely.
It's not hyperlinked, but abouttimepodcast.com. So you can check that out on Monday. So that's all I've got. Thank you again so much for having me.
Y'all are awesome. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
What a
Thank you,
great
guys.
way to start a Saturday.
Happy Saturday.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
All right.